Imagine a massive, preemptive American strike deep in the desert. Missiles raining down, wiping out Iranian nuclear sites and leadership in hours. Backed by a multi-trillion-dollar defense budget and overwhelming conventional firepower, a swift, decisive victory for the United States appears to be a mathematical certainty. But the reality plays out very differently. This chart compares the scale of U.S. defense spending against Iran's fractionally small military budget. Despite dropping billions in high-tech ordnance, the U.S. finds its conventional strength grinding to a halt, often losing ground to an adversary it seemingly outclasses. The conflict operates on a logic where brute force is neutralized by factors that the U.S. military wasn't built to fight. To understand why trillions of dollars in equipment are failing to end the threat, we have to look past the missiles and at the architecture of the region itself. To understand why the U.S. is locked to the Middle East, we have to look back to the 1970s. After abandoning the gold standard, the Nixon administration needed a new way to guarantee the value of the American dollar. This flowchart shows the '74 petrodollar deal. America promised military protection to Gulf states. In return, they sold oil exclusively in dollars, funneling capital back to America. If that shield shatters, the Gulf loses its incentive, the cycle breaks, and dollar demand collapses overnight. Preserving the stability of the Gulf states provides the literal foundation for American economic power. The survival of the American dollar is tied directly to the United States military's ability to police these massive oil fields. From Iran's perspective, the timeline of hostility begins in 1953. The CIA and British intelligence orchestrated a coup to remove Iran's elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, after he attempted to nationalize the country's oil wealth. That deep-seated anger boiled over during the 1979 Islamic Revolution, forcibly uprooting decades of American influence and installing a leadership that defined itself by its opposition to the West. Shortly after, Iran suffered devastating chemical weapons attacks from Saddam Hussein during an 8-year war, attacks the global community largely ignored. Iran concluded that conventional defense was inadequate for its survival. To prevent a similar catastrophe, they began building the ultimate strategic deterrent. This ignited a decades-long cat-and-mouse game. Following Donald Trump's decision to pull the U.S. out of the JCPOA nuclear agreement, Iran accelerated its enrichment program, pushing levels dangerously close to the 90% weapons-grade threshold. Tehran views its nuclear infrastructure as an existential insurance policy, the only thing standing between the current regime and a Western-backed collapse. To protect that insurance policy, Iran leans on its geography. The Zagros Mountains act as a vast natural military shield that conventional armies have historically failed to cross. These peaks hide sprawling bunker cities, allowing nuclear centrifuges and ballistic missile arrays to survive the heaviest airstrikes while remaining ready to fire at a moment's notice. Their counterattack is primarily economic. This map highlights the Strait of Hormuz, a 33-kilometer pinch point where 20% of the entire global oil supply is trapped. Iran sits directly on top of this choke point. By threatening a single commercial tanker, they can spike global maritime insurance rates, halt the flow of oil, and trigger the very petrodollar collapse the U.S. military is meant to prevent. Anticipating strikes on their leadership, Iran developed the Mosaic Doctrine, dividing the military into 31 autonomous provincial commands. This ensures that even if the central government in Tehran is decapitated, the military machine continues to function independently. Then there is the sheer mathematical cost of the war. Iran deploys swarms of mass-produced drones costing a few $1,000s each, forcing the U.S. to expend interceptor missiles that cost millions per shot. By layering terrain, their economic choke points, and low-cost attrition, Iran has built a system where the cost of an American victory is too high to pay. They have engineered an asymmetric trap that turns U.S. military spending into a liability. This leaves both nations in a state of total deadlock. America cannot abandon the Gulf without risking the collapse of its currency, but it cannot conquer a geography specifically designed to absorb its power. If pushed to the brink, Iran has an escalation option resting on the ocean floor, severing the subsea communication cables carrying the world's data. Severing these underwater lines would instantly paralyze international banking, disrupt cloud services, and cause massive blind spots in global data traffic. The friction in the Middle East represents a direct collision between an economic empire dependent on oil stability and a geographic fortress capable of severing the world's most vital connections. The resulting stalemate holds the power to break modern civilization.